A bright and cheerful good morning to all my lovely students. Now, before starting with the reading of the chapter, let us start with introduction of the chapter. Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela. This chapter is an extract from the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, born on 18th July 1918. The first black president of South Africa. It includes description of the inauguration ceremony, citations from his speech, his journey to being a freedom fighter, the struggle along with a tribute to other freedom fighters, and countless other people who fought for their freedom. In South Africa, a brutal practice named apartheid was followed. Apartheid refers to the discrimination between people on the basis of their race. It was one of the most brutal societies where dark-skinned people were deprived of their basic rights. This lesson gives us an overview as to how Nelson Mandela, along with others, carved their way to a society where there will be no discrimination on the basis of their color, caste, race, age, or gender. So it is well said by Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it is done. So now we are going to read and understand the chapter. I hope you all are ready with your book and pencil in hand. Great. Open page number 16 of the book, First Flight. So, let's get started. Apartheid is a political system that separates people according to their race. Can you say which of three countries named below had such a political system until very recently? Yes, you are right, South Africa. Have you heard of Nelson Mandela? Mandela and his African National Congress spent a lifetime fighting against apartheid. Mandela had to spend 30 years in prison. Finally, democratic elections were held in South Africa in 1994, and Mandela became the first black president of a new nation. In this extract from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, Mandela speaks about a historic occasion, the inauguration. Can you guess what the occasion might be? Check your guess with this news item from the BBC of 10 May 1994. So come over to the next page, and this one activity is given. This you will be doing it yourself. So we are starting with the chapter now. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. So here, dawned means began. Pleasantly here means giving a sense of happy satisfaction or enjoyment. Besized is to be surrounded by. Dignitaries means a person considered to be important because of high rank or office. Sandstone is a sedimentary rock consisting of sand or grains cemented together, typically red, yellow, or brown in color. Amphitheater and open air theater. Supremacy, the state or condition of being superior to all others in authority, power, or status. So, in this paragraph, 10th May was the day when Nelson Mandela sworn in as the first black head of state, South Africa. It was after years of struggle that his anti-racist party came into power. Until then, the seat had always been occupied by white presidents. That is why the author referred to the day as bright and clear. It was a morning full of hope. Days before this date, many notable personalities started congratulating him for his victory. For the first time in the country's history, so many international leaders came together for their inauguration ceremony. The ceremony took place in an open circular building made of sandstone consisting of union buildings in the Pretoria city. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zene. On the podium, Mr. D. Clark was first sworn in as second deputy president. So, sworn here means given under oath. Oath is a promise given to witnesses, those who are present there. A promise given to the witness. And deputy is a person who is appointed to undertake the duties of a superior in superior's absence, or we can say second in command. Then Thombo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people, to the assembled guests and the watching world. So here pledged means committed by a promise, and assembled is to gather together in one place for a common purpose. So, what is said here? The author was accompanied by his daughter Zenin on his big day. First, the two presidents took an oath. Then, when his turn came, he committed to respect, protect, and abide by the Constitution and to devote his entire self into the welfare of the country. I said, today, all of us do by our presence here confer glory. Confer means grant and glory means honor, and hope to newborn liberty out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We who were outlaws mean because of its policy of apartheid. Many countries had earlier broken off diplomatic relations with South Africa. Not so long ago have today been given the rare privileged to be host of the nations of the world on our own soil. So, here on our own soil means in our own country. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. Here, possession means ownership, and dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of respect. So, what we have understood till here is the author also mentions some parts of his speech where he said that everyone by his presence was giving rise to hope for a new beginning. Previous rulers were discriminatory and lasted for long, but the ones who are given the opportunity to rule now would stand up against discrimination. He is glad to host a ceremony with the presence of global leaders. It is an achievement in itself. There was a time when South Africa, for practicing apartheid, lost all its international political relationships. Now, when there is no segregation on the basis of race and gender, other nations are happy to have healthy democratic relationships. Finally, they have come to power and they pledge to make everyone proud. He thanked everyone, especially the international leaders, for joining them in celebrating their achievements, which is a step towards an equal society where every human will be treated fairly. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. Emancipation here means the fact of being set free from legal, social, or political restrictions. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. So, here, liberate is to be free, and bondage means the state of being slave. Deprivation is the damaging lack of material benefits considered to be basic necessities in a society. And discrimination is being treated differently. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. So, here, oppression means prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment of authority. And glorious is to bring fame. And reign is rule. So, here he mentions that after great struggle, they have finally achieved political freedom. His government promised to free everyone of the still existing poverty, hardship, and inequalities of all kinds, along with assuring everyone of a country where no community will be considered inferior. He then exclaims that freedom should rule and may God shower his blessings on their land. So, students, we have two comprehension check questions here after this. So, first question is, where did the ceremonies take place? Can you name any public buildings in India that are made of sandstone? Answer to this is, the ceremonies took place in an amphitheater which was formed by union buildings in Pretoria. In India, we have many public buildings made of sandstone, some of which are Rashtrapati Bhavan, Red Fort, and the Supreme Court of India in New Delhi. So, our next question is, can you say how 10 May is an autumn day in South Africa? As we know, our side in North, May is summer season. But here they have mentioned autumn season, autumn day it is. Why? Because it is opposite, it is in south. The weather is opposite, that is in the north, it is opposite in the south. So answer to this is, since South Africa lies in the southern hemisphere, we can say that May falls in the autumn season. So students, our next question is, at the beginning of his speech, Mandela mentions an extraordinary human disaster. What does he mean by this? What is the glorious human achievement he speaks of at the end? So we all know by an extraordinary human disaster, Mandela is referring to the apartheid system that was prevalent in South Africa under the previous leadership of whites. People of color were treated unfairly, and no human being deserves that. He stood against the unjust practices and finally won the democratic elections to become the first black president of South Africa. He refers to this win as glorious human achievement. Come over to next question now. What does Mandela thank the international leaders for? The author thanked the international leaders for joining and supporting them in their victory of freedom, justice, and human dignity. Earlier, many nations had cut ties with South Africa because of their practice of apartheid. So, our next question, that is last question, is what ideals does he set out for the future of South Africa? As the newly elected president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela wanted to liberate the country of all the unjust practices. He set out ideals for a country which was free of poverty, discrimination, and injustice. So, students, this is all for today. So, we will continue with the chapter in our next video lecture. Thank you and have a nice day.